I'm Dan Woolsey. I farm here in Gorge Road, Southland, with my wife Emily and two children, on an equity partnership with my parents. The farm here at South is just under 500 hectares, milking 1,250 cows. It wasn't rough weather, it was just a consistent wet, so we ended up with soils at field capacity from end of July right through till November, which put a lot of pressure on an all-grass system or all farmers that are farming grass. A lot of people have said to me that's the wettest extended period they've ever seen. Our aim was literally to minimise our damage to pastures and look after our stock. And it's pretty hard getting out of bed every day and putting a wet weather gear on that was wet from the day before. Every day there was a plan A, B and C about where the cows are going, what we're going to do, what lane we're going to put animals or race we're going to put cows down, what gates they're going in, why we're not putting them in this paddock due to the contour, or we're thinking about the animals, the pastures, the damage, the public perception, the environment. Everything was talked about, negotiated, how we're going to do things, and that structured the decisions. But the big one was look after the pastures, because that's the rest of our season, that's our production. Firstly, we just kept everything that wasn't in milk, had to be off grass. So the use of calving pads and our yards, and paddocks that we'd used with brassicas, we extended the time that they were on there. And any animals that had to be on grass, which is of course our cows that were in milk, using small techniques of anything from break fencing from the back of the paddock, working our way forward, use of back gates, having to give up grazing a paddock because we were starting to damage it, taking animals off. The use of supplements was necessary because we had to make our pasture go the distance. So, but we couldn't get a tractor or a silage wagon or anything like that into the paddock. So we had to use techniques such as feeding under the wire along lanes, feeding out on some sort of pads or on concrete to try and really minimise that damage to pasture, because without that pasture we had nothing for the rest of the year. So, but of course there was a follow-on effect. There was damage, and we've had to resow a lot of the farm, undersow, change decisions on what paddocks are going to be regrassed for the next few years, and what paddocks are going to be cropped and used for wintering. So anyway, glad to see we're on the other side of it now. The weather caused a production decrease for the farm. We ended up being 5% down on budget production in a whole. Hey, pretty happy with that. New Zealand had a tough season. Southland was wet and the North Island was dry. Our crops went in a lot later than they should have been. We're sort of talking our beet crops would normally be going in October, start of November. They weren't put in until mid-December. Our kale crops that normally go in December didn't go until January. We generally make around about 1,000 bales of baleage on farm, sort of 250 tonne worth of dry matter in baleage, and we only made 400 bales. We just did our best to feed the cows as best as we could, and like I said, they're very resilient. They come through to mating slightly lower condition than I would have hoped for. We took mitigations, put a few animals on once a day leading into mating time. Had a reasonable mating considering the season. Ended up with sub 10% empty rate in a 10-week mating, so pretty happy with the results in the end. Probably not a bad result considering the season. We have a team of up to 9 in the spring on farm, and it's amazing how a few compliments can go a long way. Patting them on the back, take them out for dinner. We've got a local country club we use, and just say, hey, we'll see us all down there, let's go down there and get some pizzas. And my wife's a good baker. She keeps the baking up to them daily. In general, the stock are looking good, and the feed budgets are stacking up for the spring and our winter feed. Everything's looking like it'll line up for a good spring this year, subject to it, the weather holding out this time round. We got through it, and we're on the other side now, and looking forward to the next season now. Hopefully our spring this year's a lot better.